Oh boy, we are back to talk a little bit more about the Ra books and the Plejaren spirit teaching, but the most specific point of this are the 7 stages of evolution. So there was this, let's talk about Bach here. Let's talk about music.
Mm-hmm.
And we have a little diagram up here on that I made on Higher Density Living's website. And it talks about the dimensions and octaves of certain zones of density and how each color also goes into a specific note and a specific hertz. And then so there's 7 substages within one specific stage of densities, okay? So there's different dimensions within that density. So in the Law of One books, before we get into the Plejaren spirit teaching of this, the questioner had asked Ra was, how is the Orion entity able to act through this linkage of this, of this person called Hosanna? Was it simply because someone had a mental distortion of the instrument at the period of the time? Okay, so what they're saying is, how did someone make a link to this person telepathically through the use of music? And so Ra comes in and responds, I am Ra. Firstly, the later supposition is false. They were talking about a metaphysical link to the time of Christ, so that was inaccurate. And they said the entity is not linked with this person called Yeshua. Secondly, this is a most unique circumstance. And again, as a reminder, Ra is an upper or lower 6th density being, collective consciousness. They said there is an entity which has attracted the attention of this certain light being, which is extremely rare. So this person had an intense calling to the teachings of Jesus. And through that sort of intense devotion, there was a vibration that was being emitted by this individual, this lady. And it says, this entity then vibrates in song a most demanding version called the Mass in B minor by Bach. And it says, of this exemplary votive complex of sound vibrations, this entity is consciously identifying with each part of this Mass. So the consciousness begins to identify with the frequencies that are actually sitting within this music. And so this music can actually sit in specific densities and dimensions within that density depending on the blending of these tones. So the consciousness is but the same as also music being played and how this lady is aligning with it. So if we're looking at this, it's not really so much about words and having an understanding of, knowledge or music or these things in the material world, but rather how you resonate with this experience of life and creation itself that determines what density you're sitting at. Does that make sense?
Yes. So resonating. Okay, explain this for us monkey minds. So I see here on the chart there's different densities.
Yeah.
So and I know we're going to get into each one, but a density is what again? Like how can I visually see it and understand it?
Very good. So when we think of density in the material sense, something's dense, it's heavy.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, oh, I can't pick it up. It's so dense. Or I ate that food. It's so dense. It's so heavy in my stomach. Spiritual density is a function of emission, almost like a function of sound or an emission of light in the material sense. So the more dense a light source is, the more bright it is. You can't really look at it, like the sun. It's the amount of the light quotient that the sun actually carries so high. There's such a density of light photons in it being emitted that it's just like the vibration's too high. It's too much for you to look at. It actually becomes an agitant. Like the blue light on your computer, how it can disturb you?
Yes.
That wavelength is almost too much on the eyes.
That makes sense.
When you stare at it for too long. So this density is a concentration of that factor of light, that factor of vibration or sound, which we're seeing here. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, that makes sense. So whenever, because Raw talks about like we're in 3rd density and we're going to 4th density, it's a evolving process for humanity on this planet too.
Yeah, it's an evolution.
Right.
Much like, the Mass in B minor by Bach, that symphony has an evolution through its symphony. And so those sounds and tones will also carry colors with it. It's much akin to Close Encounters of the Third Kind, Steven Spielberg. Remember he's playing the boop, 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 and it has the music with the lights that are showing up? Same exact thing. So at that point, it's not so much an understanding of the words, but it's a resonance of the energy, light, and sound that's coming together that defines what that density might be.
That makes sense, yes.
So if I am the sun and I'm resonating at such a density of light, there's an evolution to what I am. The sun is super old and it's always giving. So it must sit in a higher density. There must be some sort of intelligence that the sun itself has and every other star. Those are things that are giving. Planetary bodies are all living. They're all alive. They're a function of creation also.
So let's start at the beginning. So let's get into, so people can understand density. Let's get into first density.
First density. And this is representative of the color red. So that's like the root chakra. Okay, that's the base, the fundamental base of anything. That's that life energy point. That's when you get the first resonant vibrations. Red is also a very long wavelength. So it's like if you think about like a tone on a keyboard or like a bass guitar, it's the supporting sound that's in the background. It's the low hum that really carries the tune and the beat through. Does that make sense? So your red root chakra, that first density, is the first foundational pieces that carry everything else in life forward. That's the base of it all. Now, when we go through our stages of evolution, much like everything else, if you're a conscious thing, you say, okay, well, what is going to be this first density? So if I have 7 stages of this density and there's 7 stages or octaves that sit within it because it matches music, light, and color, okay? Light through a prism breaks up into 7 separate colors. The combination of all of them becomes like that white light. That's what we're looking at. So how do we live within each one of those colors? And what sort of energetic learning and understanding and alignment with creation is found when I sit in that red root chakra, that first density? So I have a list here that I have broken down. Thankful for the Playaran spirit teaching for the self from the Billy Meier material. So you have a stage and then a substage. All these take a very great amount of time to move through, right? But that requires learning. Remember the errors. Those get baked into the consciousness block of the individual that pairs up with the spirit, so that when they reincarnate, they're like, okay, I have all the foundational learning from these past lives. I can carry it forward to the next one. So stage 1.1, and this is called the primary life. Primary, base, root, red root chakra, the C note, 0 to 397 hertz. 1.1, primary development of intellect and consciousness. The primary development. So what is the pieces that allow intellect to actually occur? So is there a forming of some sort of brain? Is there a forming of a nervous system that is actually occurring within this organism? Okay.
Yeah, and let's do it in real time too, so we can go back and forth. If you don't mind typing in first density in raw.
Yeah, I don't mind at all.
Because I think like raw goes into how many millions of years it is each one, each density. So I think it would be interesting to kind of play them off of each other. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So here we go. They have from the second density to the third.
And you guys can look this up. It's law of one dot.
It's law1.info.
Yeah, and then the Pleiadian teachings
it's called the futureofmankind.co.uk. We can put these in the show notes.
Okay, perfect. I just want everyone to understand that they can do this research on their own.
Yeah. So when you're actually looking at the term density here, and I have times on this also, and it's actually the Vedic scripts, Sanskrit, like the Bhagavad Gita, talks about these lengths of time, but the Playaran and Ra breaks it down into something more specific and tangible for you to hold on to. So just for a little bit of understanding here, because I don't have the scale that Ra has on here yet, I just looked this up quickly. Someone said, well, how long does the second density progress to the third? And it says, I am Ra. The second density strive towards the third density, which is the density of self-consciousness and self-awareness. The striving takes place through the higher second density forms who are invested by third density beings with an identity to the extent that they become self-aware in their mind-body complexes, thus becoming mind-body-spirit complexes and entering third density, the first density of consciousness of spirit. Didn't even tell you how long the amount of time is here. I think I have the...
Yeah, It's either billions or millions of years that happens.
Ridiculous
it's
amount of time.
a ridiculous amount of times.
Yeah, I'd have
on the hanging out on the first density.
Okay, yeah. So I'll just explain it right here. So, a human being can become hundreds or even thousands of years old when he has reached a certain consciousness-related state of relative perfection, with a correspondingly high and sound keyword way of living. After 40 to 60 million years of reincarnating into material bodies. So all the way up through fourth density. So people we're not even there yet, but just you through your periods of lifetimes, after 40 to 60 million years in material body state, the being takes on a half material, half spirit body state, which becomes your fifth density. This 50-50 state lasts for 60 to 80 billion years.
Yes, that's what I was getting at. Yeah.
So now
law of one says the same thing.
So it exponentially grows in time and learning. It doesn't become easier. It becomes longer with more experience. And then after you've done your 80 billion year stint, okay, now you transform into something that is pure spirit form. You're no longer bound by time.
Yeah, and I may be wrong, but I think he says 40 to 80 billion raw.
Yeah,
it's the same.
And this is 60 to 80 billion.
So let's get into this, Alex. So I want to stay because let's make a episode on each of these densities.
We're gonna have to.
smaller ones. Yeah.
Now I'm realizing how large it is.
Yeah. So first density, we're gonna stay that, and then you guys can watch the next episode for second density.
Right.
Because we're gonna do law of one, first density, Polarian teachings.
Law
of two, law of one, Polarian teachings. Density two. Yeah. So. First density, consciousness, awareness.
It's only building the things that allow you to get to the point of thinking. I'm developing a
That's
nervous
why it takes
system.
so long.
So think about a fly or a gnat.
Mm-hmm.
They have a nervous system, but it is so underdeveloped.
Yes.
So they are in that primary sort of life stage.
But they only live for how many days?
Or like an amoeba, right?
Yes.
When you think about bacteria. Something is happening there. There's a cause and effect going on, but it hasn't fully grown into multiple bacteria, so it becomes like a living, thinking thing. So it makes you wonder, like, what stage is like a mushroom or mycelium at? Because they're interconnected.
Can I side note you right now?
Yeah, go ahead.
Your mind?
Yeah, please.
Have you ever heard of the African-American lady that is growing right now, even though she's dead?
She's growing even though she's dead?
She is 7 times her size right now. So type in this is gonna blow your mind, bro.
Did she have mushrooms going to her body?
No. Type in lady cells growing constantly cancer. They have her in labs all across the world, and she's just growing. Her cells just constantly grow for eternal.
Henrietta Lacks.
Yep, exactly. She's growing as we speak.
African American woman whose cancer cells are the source of the HeLa cell line, the first immortalized human cell line of the most important cell lines in medical research. Very interesting.
They took it up in space to see what would happen. All these people buy it and they have it, and then it just constantly grows in the lab. So you have all these medical labs all over the world, and her cells are just constantly growing all the time.
That's amazing.
So she's 700 times her size. Her cells are 700 times now because she died in the 50s or 60s. I think.
Yeah, that's absolutely.
So this is, and the reason I was bringing that up is this is, and don't be looking at that, Alex.
No,
I know I intrigued you.
Yeah, I'm like, ooh, interesting.
So, but think about this constant growth, from this, because this is, can I say this word? Correct me. This is creation explained.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is.
Okay. It's
creation in the flesh, in the material form. That's what you're looking at. It's thought.
That's first density.
It's thought in material form. Okay. So you have like you come to some sort of idea, you're daydreaming, and you're like, oh, how do I build upon that? Well, you had to have some sort of base thought first, right?
Yes.
You need something to build upon. It needs to have roots to it. So then if you look at the second stage, stage 1.2, the substage, primary intellectual thinking and consciousness thinking.
Primary.
Yeah, primary. Okay. What is primary intellectual thinking and consciousness thinking? So I'm like a really underdeveloped ape. there needs to be food intake. I know I'm supposed to be pulling in these basal things, like your Maslow hierarchy of needs.
For survival.
Yeah, it's only survival at this point. Okay? That's all it is. You're not even thinking rationally. You'll do anything at all costs, whatever, to just survive.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Even if it might be harming others. There's no rationality in something
or even
like that.
even to the point of harming yourself, because that beehive over there is food.
Yeah. So even if the beehive's food and I might kill myself doing it, I'm going to do it anyway.
Yeah.
Because I'm driven by this base
Primordial,
intellect and thinking, right? And then you get to the substage 1.3. Mind you, so many years ago, hundreds of thousands of years are going by in development.
Yeah, and blinks. Yeah.
Yeah. Primary cognitive thinking. Wait a minute. Beehive. Death. Stay away.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? I got to get away from that. I'm cognizant. I'm actually aware of the fact that I am thinking.
I want the honey, but this is not.
Yeah. I'm aware of the fact that there's a need.
Yes.
And that's it. I'm only now becoming aware. I have the ability to think, there's intellect, things are happening, but now I'm growing in awareness.
Yes.
Okay? But I'm not even close. There is going to be millions and millions of years before I even step into self-awareness. Right now, it's just building awareness.
Yes.
And then we're going to get into substage 4. So 1.4, the primary use of the power of the intellect and the power of the consciousness. So now I got this sort of thinking that's happening. Now it's going to be used for survival. It's going to be used for eating, for whatever those basal needs are, right? While the awareness is still growing. Stage 1.5, primary cognitive actions. The awareness has increased. Now I'm aware of my surroundings enough to the fact to be like, oh, wait a minute, something's going on here. Whether I'm developing rudimentary eyes or feeling sensors that are happening around me, I have a cognitive action. So, if I touch that, maybe move away from it.
That is hot.
That is hot. Some sort of automatic responses. Even though I don't know hot is bad for me, there's a cognitive response through this developing nervous system that I got to move away from it. Okay? Then we get to 1.6, primary volitional thinking and acting. What does that mean? Volition. I have the need to go do it. I'm going to empower myself to go do this now. I'm a bumblebee. I know that in my basal nervous system functioning, I have to fly from flower to flower. I have to support the queen. I have to do this to that. Okay? That's required.
And that have to is these millions of years.
Yeah.
Evolving you to
Of
that
those states.
To that point to where my identity of being a bumblebee through evolution has this desire for me to, because this explains our self and consciousness, and we talked about that earlier with beliefs. But if over years I've evolved to be a bumblebee and that is my identity, then that's just what I do.
Yeah.
They're not self-aware enough. The bumblebee hasn't evolved where it's self-aware enough to say, why am I doing this?
I have a volition to survive, right? So what do you do with the red root chakra? You procreate there.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
Just think about sex in that nature, right? It's all down there in that chakra. So if you're thinking about the primary function of life, that's what it is. Energy, survival, volition. That's all those things that are going on. Your only thought is food and procreate.
Yes.
That's all that's happening down there.
Right.
Even though you're becoming aware, that is the awareness. The awareness is longevity. Okay. And so in all consciousness, new spirits lack knowledge and related development that happens with that. So when we move to stage 1.7, it's the cognitive guidance of life. So now I'm actually having I'm actually interacting with the environment in its fullness. I'm interacting with life itself. Okay. All the stimuli that are coming in, I'm now really a part of the system. I can feel my way around and it cognitively hits my nervous system. And I know that I need to change or move direction.
There's a holistic approach now.
Not even that it's the right rational direction,
right?
But something is coming in that's telling me I need to move here or do this.
Is this where the awareness of community comes in?
No, not even close.
Okay.
Not even close. Even though you might live in like a community, say, of cells or flies, you're not really thinking about it. The flies just know in their own cognitive sense that if there's a fly here, I know that feeling. There's a feeling of safety. There's no threat to the existence at that point, right? That collective lives in that. So that primary function is let's all work together to then continue to expand within that primary reproductive function.
Yeah.
The hive,
so
right?
the multiplication of cells.
Well, the more we multiply, the bigger foundation we have.
Yes.
The longer the probability of our life and our existence.
Yes.
So all they're doing is just procreating all day long, whether it's eggs or rabbits or what have you. But a rabbit has a more developed nervous system at that point. Just think of it in bacteria. So just to keep it in mind, just for this first stage, we're at 20 minutes here for the primary life, red root chakra. It's the base for everything. All consciousness, new spirits lack knowledge and the related development that allows them to move into a state of self-awareness at this point. You're just getting going.
It's just creation.
It's just creation happening in the very
and it's
base
that
tone.
C note.
Yeah.
That's so funny.
It's that low hum.
0 to 397 hertz. And there's a lot of, and which reminds me, what's the Schumann resonance? Isn't
7.52.
Yeah.
Like
so that's like that first density base.
That's what it is. It's that long, low moving wavelength. But is that not the one that they say that supports all healthy cellular life?
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
You see how these things are starting to link up?
Yeah. All creation, the interlinks.
Yeah. And when you think of energy, you think of fire, you think of warmth. What happens when you get one of those red hot lamps? That they use for keeping egg warm, like in an incubation state.
Yes.
Or food at a buffet table.
Yes.
It's that long, warmth, radiant life. It's that giving energy that allows things to actually spur up.
No, I can feel that, Alex. I can see. So on a practical application, we'll close in this, and you can speak to this. When you're understanding each of these densities, and we're going through and we're saying, oh, okay, this is first density, second density, third density, the awareness of understanding our foundation. And I want people to get this too. This is not because here's what's going to happen. And as well as I do, people are going to do this. Law of One teaching's catching on. There's more and more YouTube videos being put out and stuff like that. People are catching on to this from the 80s. They're finally catching on. Polarian teachings, our Billy Meier series was our most watched series on HDL.
Yep.
Yeah. So anytime we use the word Polarian, it seems like people pop and this is not another belief system.
No.
It's not like, oh, okay, well, I was a Christian, now I'm a Polarian believer.
No, did this talk anything about God or believing? No, this is just an observation of things over time.
And you're also receiving information from, because the information that's coming from Raw are coming from Polarians, or we talked about there was some issues with the Seth, or you have all these channelers now, and they're receiving this information. That information, you can't say Billy Meier, the guys, the scientific guys with Law of One, what was there, 4 of them, 3 of them, the lady and
Law of One, there's 3.
Yeah, the 2 guys and the lady.
Dan, Jim, and Carla.
Yeah, so you can't. I don't want people to idolize these people and turn it into a religion.
No,
this isn't. Well, what do you believe? Well, I'm Law of One. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah,
now you've just fucked it all up.
No, there's some like nuggets of good observational, creational stuff in each one. Take it for what it is. And I found that thing that you were looking at here. They asked, can you give me an idea of the length of the first and second density that occurred for this planet? And it says there is no method of estimation of time space. We can explain later why they describe it like that. For the timelessness that gave way to your first density. The beginnings of your time, the measurement would be vast, and yet this vastness is meaningless. Where the number just becomes so large, it's like, why are you even trying to measure it? It's just something that happened. Yeah. So, but it says, upon the entry into this constructed space-time, which means your physical realm, your first density spanned a bridge of space-time of perhaps 2 billion of your years.
I love the word they use, bridge.
So they only use bridges. They don't say wall. So from 1 to 2, it took 2 billion years. You've been reincarnating just for those 2, right? Just about everybody here as a human being is in third. All of them are, actually. Okay? So that's billions and billions and billions and billions of years. That's insane. And second density, they estimate it is approximately 4.6 billion years. Isn't it interesting how those take billions, and then you get to, your third density stage into fourth, and that's 40 to 60 million. It shortens.
Right.
And then after it's shortened, because it's a time of intense learning, you now move into a state of part timelessness again, and then it becomes into the billion year format. doesn't really care. The measure of time is irregardless. It's just how the learning is actually done.
But right now, and we'll get into this when we get heavy into third, but right now everyone's in third density and we're coming slowly into the fourth.
Yeah.
And we have human beings right now that are coming into the fourth density. And I would say probably Jesus was fourth density, Buddha. You got some of these great spiritual teachers now, that they would be more than likely fourth density beings are coming into fourth density.
Yeah.
On that evolutionary trail, if you want to call it that. But,
yeah.
But I mean, what I'm saying is there's hope and optimism. And these teachings are saying that the world is not fucked.
No. And here, I'll tell you this. Evolution happens regardless.
Mm-hmm.
Whether you say, I don't want to evolve, or you don't think about it, it's going to happen.
Yes.
So it's either you figured it out now or you figured it out billions of years from now.
Mm.
That's all it is. We're just teeing you up right now. You want to pay attention to it? No? Okay. Yes? Let's rock and roll.
And serving others is how we move from third to fourth. So the number one priority that you have is love, light, teach, learn, serve others.
Yeah. That's all. Listen, that's going to be your only focus.
With no dogma and no assuming anyone's free will.
No, just be like the earth.
Mm-hmm.
Just give. Support. Be that foundation for evolutionary growth.